Today I'm going to teach you about CSS floats, the finicky CSS floats. So we can use floats to create the effect of columns. And while this isn't ideal and there are some ways with CSS to make it easier, they're not going to be supported in all browsers because they are somewhat new. So best to learn the basics first. Here I have a div with a class of wrap for our website and a simple heading. And what I want to do is create our main content area. And then I would also like to create a sidebar section that maybe has navigation links, or it could have a list of categories for our blog. You're familiar with sidebars likely. So here, let's first do our main content. Here I'm going to use an ID of content, though you could equally use a class of content if you imagine using the styling again. Within here, I will write, "This is my blog," and that should be fine. Mostly we're going to be focusing on CSS. And next, I would like to create a sidebar. So there are two ways to do this. One of them will be to continue using a div, and you'll see this quite a bit, especially in older websites. You apply a class of sidebar, and this doesn't do anything magical. The word sidebar doesn't do anything. We could call it anything we want. But this gives us a way to target the sidebar and style it accordingly. Now there are new HTML5 elements that we can use that allow us to keep from using divs over and over. Because remember, divs don't have any semantic meaning at all. They're simply wrappers. So if we can use elements that have meaning, we should always elect to do so. In this case, we're going to use an aside element. Now this doesn't only refer to a sidebar, it just means information on our website that is connected, that should be placed aside to some content. So while we can use it as a top level sidebar, it could also be within perhaps an article within your blog. You could have an aside section. Within here, I'm going to use an H2 and write sidebar, and then I'm going to add a list of links. And if we're going to do a list of links, we want to make sure that we use an unordered list. So first, within a list item, I'm going to use an anchor tag. And here, we're going to use the generic # because we aren't linking to anywhere specific in our case. And we'll say home. And then I will copy this a few times, and we'll change this to about and contact. And then if we wanted, we could continue with our sidebar, but I think it's fine for now. And also within our content section, maybe I'll say main content heading. Just some gibberish so that we have something to work with. This is a fine website. So now I'm going to come back and reload the page, and here we have it. So now our job is to figure out how to get this sidebar to the right side of our main content area so that it looks like a real website. If we browse the NetTuts, you can see, if I zoom out a few clicks, we have our main wrapper, and then we have our main content area, and then we also have a sidebar that's pushed off to the right. Let's try to recreate this. First, we're referencing our style.css file, and now we can get started. The first step is to, if we come back, reference this class of wrap. As we learned in the last lesson, the quiz lesson, we can apply a width of 600 pixels and a margin of auto to center our website on the page. The next step is, let's use background colors so we can easily see where each section begins and ends. And this is important to remember, these are just boxes. So for example, if I come back and we want to reference div with a class of content, I do period content, background red. And then if I want to reference all sides on the page, I could say background brown. Now let's refresh, and you can see these are all just boxes. If we were to apply a background color to the wrap of yellow, these are terrible colors, but you'll see, again, this is a big box. The yellow is cutting off because the sidebar is filling up the rest of the space, and that will be stacked a little bit higher in terms of the Z index or the Z axis. So let's get rid of the yellow, and we'll stick with our colors here, but we want to make the sidebar lesser in width and pushed all the way to the right. And we can accomplish this by using floats.